Let's get salty!
Everyone, Zeddy here again today with a brand new video, and there seems to be a weird phenomenon going on in standard Hearthstone right now. We're seeing nerf after nerf, changes after changes, Zilliax being nerfed for a third time, and yet we are seeing more complaints about the meta than ever, and we're also seeing cards that were nerfed 3 times end up being in over 80% of decks. We're gonna go over why nerfs in Hearthstone aren't working like they used to and why it's kind of a sign of a bigger problem. But you know, it's not a problem. Our giveaway going on. 2 Perils in Paradise standard bundles, 2 mega bundles out of my pocket. Tim to that giveaway. Like and comment in the video linked down in the description below. The one with that thumbnail over there. Be subscribed to the channel. Every 1,000 subs we get until all their cards are revealed. Next Friday, I will add another mega bundle. Hit that sub button, make me go broke. And I'll only shout out this out today. There is a Twitter giveaway going on. I'll link this down below too, where this one's from Play Hearthstone. This one's not out of my pocket, but 2 bundles, standard bundles given to me from Play Hearthstone. You just have to like and retweet that tweet and also be sub to the channel. So I'll link that below. Lots of free stuff to get. But yeah, I wanted to go over 83% Zilliax currently in decks right now. Yes, there's like a lot of combinations you can do. It's more than just kind of one card, but really it's like the Unkilliax and the ticking module for the most part, right? Like there's not a ton of difference in what you're seeing, and we just saw it get nerfed, right? It lost a mana. Reno actually has significantly dropped because, well, they've just, you know, they've not only gone from 8 to 10 mana overall, they've made it that you can't play those scam cycle decks. So Reno actually has fallen off to the point, or at least at Legend, it is down to 14% of decks and is a deck win rate of 45%, which is, yeah, I mean, it's a toxic card. It was, again, I've never defended the design. It's just like one of the only ways to enable control, and it's not a great way of doing it, but that was one way of doing it. And as a result, that has been killed because they reworked the tax, which we'll talk about later, and they made it 2 mana more expensive. Whereas Zilliax, effectively over 3 nerfs, it lost 1 keyword, which was the stealth on the virus module, which is actually a pseudo buff to the card, and they've nerfed a 0 mana module, basically ticking module, by 1 mana, still making it likely 0 mana, and then the Unkilliax by 1, a minor change. And you'll also note that Marin is in over 50% of decks already. 50% at Legend. This is at Legend over the last day. If you look at the last 3 days, it's still very similar. It's also a big part of it is like Druid is a third of the meta, literally a third, like Flower Child right there, right? And you play Marin in that deck, but it's included other stuff. But aside from that, what's going on with like the balance patches? Are nerfs unnecessary? I've heard just the wildest narrative that nerfs are the problem. If we just didn't nerf anything, it would be better. The nerfs don't do enough, so just don't nerf at all. But if you look at the meta itself, pretty much every deck here has been nerfed at least once, if not twice. So at Legend right now, we'll go through the last 3 days. We'll take a look at the last 3 days. Let's look at Combo Druid. I don't know why they call it that. It's Dragon Druid. If you look at like popular, you look at the Mulligan guide or whatever, Mulligan win rate, Splish Splash Whelp has already been nerfed. Desert Nest Matron's been nerfed. Cactus Construct has been nerfed. There's been multiple nerfs to this deck already. You look at Shopper, Demon Hunter, we don't need to look at the list. We know Umpire's Grasp was nerfed by a mana, right? Switched to Diamond through Legend because Hamba Paladin it's just like so low sample size. But like Mining Paladin, saw like Shroomskvate nerfed, we saw Plushie nerfed, we saw Deputization Aura nerfed, Handbuff Paladin, similar cards, Spell Taupe Hunter, we saw Saddle Up nerfed, and we saw the Location nerfed, Zarimi Priest saw Thirsty Drifter nerfed, it saw Zarimi nerfed, Mining Death Knight, I believe saw Threads of Despair, if you're looking at Death Knight, and the Sickly Grime Walker got nerfed, Pain Warlock saw Molten Giant, saw Imprisoned Horror get nerfed, the Location got nerfed, like every deck basically tier 1 through 3 has been nerfed multiple times, yet these decks remain as the ones that are running the meta. And it comes a lot down to a thread that I saw. We asked for nerfs, we got every card complained about nerfed. All the content creators screaming for mass nerfs are here, and here we are. Is this meta more fun? Because you could argue, like as it said, we nerfed 500 cards. I mean, that's hyperbolic as hell, which this guy's literally accused me of being flaming and hyperbolic, and he's doing literally the same thing. Regardless, it's more broken than ever. And I thought one comment summed it up just the best way I thought possible. I tweeted something similarly, but this was worded so much better. And it really does come down to, it used to be like mana changes or stat changes had a bigger effect because stats and mana on cards were a lot more impactful. However, as Tommy97 Origin stated, because Team 5 decided to pursue very toxic card designs, the effects of cards got more bombastic, the overall power level got much higher, and those cards are just fundamentally unfun to play against as soon as they got more prevalent. Lowering the power of top offenders doesn't help because the problem is the whole design philosophy. It just gives place for a new group of offenders. By its very nature, as a strictly turn-based game, Hearthstone is hard to make feel good for both parties while making both parties feel agency. Remember, we had that big agency patch, which they seemingly abandoned that idea after the one patch. The feeling that your decisions matter is very important for satisfying gameplay. Before anyone asks, I don't have any idea how to fix this. And it goes back to that video we made about the card design in Hearthstone of punishing people for playing the game, right? Puppet Theater is a great example that will emerge at some point when Priest is, a meta tyrant at some point or more competitive, where it punishes you for playing your minion and it feels bad. It feels good for one player, it feels horrible. Doomkin's probably the best current meta example, where not only do I get the benefit of ramping, I steal that mana crystal from you, screwing your game plan. You're ready to play that 6-drop next turn? You don't get to do that. And that feels really bad. And these are type of cards, again, we'll throw back to the original card designs of a lot of old cards. We did that video where they got away. Like they try these hand disruption things, mana deramping or whatever. Like they tried that in the beta and it felt so bad. They nixed all of those cards. They reworked all of those cards. And now we're seeing like a Doomkin, Theotar, for example, not that long ago. All these cards where you can change the mana, but the effect is still broken. The effect is still terrible, feels bad, and especially on the mana cheat cards. Bumping something by a mana from when it's 0 to 0 ain't great. And I just feel like the design of Hearthstone, they are trying so hard to make these cards where you're like, oh my God, should they do this? This is crazy. And then it turns out, no, they really shouldn't do this. It's crazy, right? Like we're seeing more and more of that. And you look at Perils of Paradise and it goes through cards, it kind of brings that message up of like, I don't know, this is crazy. Should it be able to deal 12 damage in one turn? Well, it's got a weird setup, but maybe it'll work. And then if it does, it feels pretty bad. Oh, giving my minions +1 attack for the game. That's crazy. That's like Battlegrounds. Should they try it on ladder? Maybe, maybe not. Like not all these work out, right? But they're like these really bold designs where if it's effective, you're gonna hate it. You're gonna hate facing it, especially if there's not a lot you can do. Let's say partner Planner Vona, right? Where they get that 8/8 constantly. Like that's gonna feel really bad. There's not a lot you can do about it. There's just a lot of these effects, right? They push the effects, the card text more than ever, yet there seems to be this unwillingness to ever change card text on cards. It's super rare. It's almost a mana increase. It's almost like, a mana or stat increase, where the most effective changes now, the way you gotta look at it in Hearthstone is changing the text on the card, which we've seen more than ever now because of this type of phenomenon where cards like just take multiple changes for it to feel more reasonable. And like Reno, right? Reno had to get a text change, 2 mana change to make it to a point where you're not facing it 1/3 of your games, which to a lot of players, that was a huge issue. We saw the Jailer have to get a complete text rework because that effect was super frustrating. We saw Thaddeus get 2 reworks, right? Like they had to rework that card twice because its effect was so broken. And we're having cards where I see tons of discussion. Like Sonya to me is a card that's super unfun for one player to watch someone spam a million 0 mana cards, where the only way to really address this card, not make it 5 mana, not make it a 2/2, is to fundamentally change it so you, like, the first time you play a 1-cost card this turn, then you do the thing, right? You have to rework the card if it's not going to feel like crap to face. And we're not seeing a lot of that. So you see a Splish Splash Whelp where they ramp on 2. And by the way, the mulligan win rate on this thing is unbelievable, 65.7%. But they took an attack off of it, right? The thing on this card was never that it was a 2/1. It was that it ramped you on 2. That's why they nerfed Wild Growth to 3 back in the day. And it's a minion. It's better than that at a lot of the times, outside of like the excess mana shenanigans. So you look at that, it's like Hearthstone is in a position where nerfs aren't doing what they used to do because stats, mana distribution mattered a lot more. Like these cards typically weren't being cheated out as much as, you know, before. Look at, like, just say, I don't know, Bone Mare, right? Making that from 7 to 8. That was a big deal back in the day. Why? Because it was just a stat bomb. It was a tempo move. So of course that makes a big deal. But again, example, Splish Splash Whelp, you take an attack off, it doesn't really change a lot, right? Like the ticking module, it doesn't make as big a difference. It's not really 1 mana most of the time. A lot of times it'll just be 0. And when they're pushing the power level of the game so much that we have a Mayor and the Manager, one of the best pre-release legendaries ever, by the way. Tomorrow, tier list on all of the pre-release legendaries. It's just, there's quite a lot now, so I thought that'd be a lot of fun to do, so look out for that. It's one of the best ones ever, if not the best one ever, because unlike the other cards that use this effect, they had a condition. You had Ice Bear Togwoggle, you had to have a lackey on the board, or the original Baron, you had to kill a chest, and you just got one of the treasures at random. Now you just get it, right? That's Hearthstone now. You just get the thing with almost no work. That's the new thing. And when you just nerf that thing by a mana or a stat point, it doesn't quite move the needle. And as a result, the meta doesn't change a lot. And these high power, super frustrating cards are always going to be the center point of it. Example was like Sharpshooter, right? Think of the power level that was in one 3-mana card to draw a card, to deal damage, to just do incredible things. And the first change was just health. It didn't really address the issue with the card at all. And now at 4, it still feels terrible when you face it. And even at 4 mana now, it pops up every once in a while and is that frustrating thing. And now we're getting Cheap Nog as the next set. And you're going to face that. It's another one of those just uninstall type of decks you don't like to face. It's super unfun to face. It can be fun to play, but it just creates that really awful feeling that a mana or stat change typically doesn't, because the card text has so much power within just one card. End of the day, it comes down to, I think Hearthstone's gone too far with power level on card text. They have centralized too much power to single cards. Like it used to be more spread out. You didn't win necessarily by one big power spike of a card. Now every deck is like one big power spike, and yeah, nerfing it by 1 mana or a stat point will slow it down, but if it's competitive, it'll still feel like absolute crap to lose to that one power spike card. And that's not going to change if they keep making, like, for the rest of the game effects or a giant mana cheat scam. That's going to continue to be a thing where people are going to continuously ask for nerfs, because you can go through the list of nerfs we went through earlier. They were all deserved. The only ones I could argue that weren't deserved of the prior nerfs is like Cyclic Grimewalker, probably could have stayed at 3, Deputization Aura, maybe +2 attack. But every other card, not only were they nerfed, they all see play outside of like Reno, right? Like, or in Reno still sees a bit of play, but at lower ranks. It's just, you can't even argue that there's not enough nerfs. If anything, they need to nerf harder, and they need to start working on card text more often. They've overstepped the mark on power level of like the actual text on a card. They need to hit it like a brand, your first battle cry, boom boss, like not shuffle that many TNTs. Maybe the TNTs don't hit everything. You have to rework these cards at some point, or it's always going to feel like crap to face, regardless if it costs a mana or more, unless they make it absolutely unplayable. But reminder, Brand went from 6 to 8 and was still a meta juggernaut until Reno had to go to 10, and it could still pop back up. There's no, it just depends on the right support. We could see Brand Warrior reemerge because that text is still the same. That's my take on it. Why nerfs have not felt as great. It's not that there's not enough. Believe me, there's more than enough nerfs and there could be more. It's just they're not nerfing hard enough and they need to rework more cards, in my opinion. Let me know if you disagree in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Have a great day and stay salty, my friends.